Hey, this is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel. I'm working on some fighting words. Before we go any further, I need you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. So let's just talk about the fights that took place over the weekend. We're going to start with Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley from the former champion of the UFC. Overall, I will just start by saying it wasn't the most entertaining fight. Neither one of them promised what they said they were going to do. Tyron definitely came a lot closer, with almost knocking Jake clear through the ropes. It's kind of what you expect. Listen, Jake Paul is a novice to boxing. He's only been boxing like 2 years, really, honestly. And Tyron Woodley is by far no elite striker. He wasn't an elite striker in the UFC, and he certainly is not an elite striker now. He does have a lot of knockouts. He has a lot of finishes in the UFC, but that's just an overhand right. That's just one punch. You know, if anything, it's just a testament to how strong the guy is and how powerful his punch is. But I don't want to make it seem like, you know, he's some elite striking whiz or anything like that once he's in the cage or in a ring. He's not. What he is a guy who gets properly prepared. What he is a guy who does his homework. What he is a type of guy who brings in the right type of people into his training camp to prepare himself to the best of his abilities through the best of his resources that he can find. That's the type of guy that he is. But is he some striking whiz? No. Is he elite? No. He's not elite for the UFC, and he's definitely not elite for boxing. However, I will say one thing he did mention that he said, you know, because he got some game from Floyd Mayweather. And the main thing that Floyd said was, you know, stay composed. And that's true. Stay composed. Because, you know, you get somebody, Jake is still a novice, how do you like it or not. He's only got like 3 fights. 2 or 3. No, 3 fights. He's still a novice. So being that he's a novice, he could just do some crazy stuff. You know, the longer you've been in a ring, the more you see a sequence of punches. You know, it's jab, jab, right hand. But him not coming up the ranks like everyone else, not going through the amateur system, not training from young, he's literally just, I'm talking about Jake, he's literally just picking this up as he goes. And credit to him, I feel like he's picking up at a reasonable speed, but he doesn't have those fundamentals. He doesn't have that foundation. So he's liable to throw anything at any time. Basically, that's what I'm trying to get at. So you can't make the mistake of thinking, jab, jab, okay, that right hand is coming. No, he could do something else. He can go shovel hook to the body. Now, it's weird and unorthodox, but he could do it. And that's the point that I'm making. So I understand that, you know, Floyd told Tyron to be composed, and that's a great thing. Yes, be composed, especially when you're in the midst of combat. I don't know how many of you guys are into like Westerns or anything like that, or, you know, American folktale or anything like that. I personally love it. One of the people that I really like was Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp had been in many gunfights, yet Wyatt Earp never got shot. He said in his book, he said, whenever there's a shootout, just stay calm. He's like, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, but just stay calm. This is a guy who reported many times by other people who were there, like Bat Masterson. He never ran. He never ran from anything, not even a bullet coming at him. But his thing was stay composed and just, like Floyd, stay composed. In his words, be calm. Now, that being said, you put that in the fight game, in the ring, be calm. So, yes, you know, you got this novice coming at you, and we're going to get to his size in a minute because he was much bigger. But, you know, Tyron was very, very calm. He was extremely calm. He was the one pushing the pace throughout the whole fight. It wasn't Jake. Jake was backing up the whole time. However, I will give Jake some credit. He was moving pretty well, especially in the first 2 rounds. He was circling, which was... I gotta give him credit. Like I said, he is picking things up, and he's picking things up at a nice speed, I would say. Again, you know, you're picking all this up at like 24, you know. But you can see he's doing his homework. You can see he's taking this seriously, because just his movement is telling me that he's taking this seriously. I'm not saying it's the best footwork in the world. I'm just saying for him to stay in routes, constantly moving, constantly circling around while shooting at a jab was pretty impressive for somebody with his limited level of experience and limited level of skill. But like I said, Tyron's the one pushing the action the whole time. However, the first 2 rounds, he did nothing. He did absolutely nothing. In which case, he literally just gave Jake Paul those rounds. He did nothing. All he did was crouch low, and it was weird because, okay, so if you're coming from a different sport, so before boxing, I actually did Kyokushin karate and I did Taekwondo. But coming to boxing, you have to totally disassociate yourself with what you know. Because if not, you'll revert back to what you know and not what you've been learning. Because you have more time with what you know. And a perfect example of that, in the same context, you have Conor McGregor when he's fighting Floyd Mayweather. The way he was grappling Floyd and like hitting behind the head. Yeah, it's a lot of that stuff most of that stuff is legal in the UFC, but he's reverting back to what he knows. Now in boxing, that's an illegal blow, which is why they kept breaking him up. Now Tyron, he would crouch low, wrestling stance, wide legs crouching low. That's his bread and butter because most of his knockouts, I probably say a high percentage, like 80% of his knockouts come from him crouching low, people in fear that he's about to go for their legs because he's a wrestler at heart, overhand right. So it was kind of weird to see him do it, but it worked. It definitely pushed Jake Paul back, but he didn't fully take advantage of it because he didn't do anything. Keep in mind, you're the shorter guy, so, your jab is not going to be that effective if you're far back and you crouch that low to somebody who's that much taller than you. And not to mention, you just didn't throw. One of the issues with Tyron in the past in the UFC is that he has these moments where he's just kind of stagnant and he doesn't do anything. And it's a lack of activity a lot of times that kills him. And it showed itself in the first 2 rounds and up until late in the 3rd round. That's when he started picking things up. And that's when he started shooting out his jab. And listen, people, if you do train, let me just give you a quick tip. Sometimes you just got to get things going. Not everybody's a fast starter. How do you get things going? You use your jab. It's as simple as that. Just use your jab. If you just you don't necessarily have to put it out there with the expectations of hitting your opponent, but just putting it out there, just stretching out your arms. Number 1, it gives your opponent something to think about. And number 2, it loosens you up. But you got to use your jab. If you're not that comfortable, use your jab. If nothing else, it's the simplest punch, but it's probably the most important punch. Use your jab. If I was in Tyron's corner, I would have been screaming from round 1, use your jab. Jab, jab, jab. I can't stress that enough. Jake apparently got that information coming into the round 1. Tyron did not. And again, it's because he's a fighter and he's been fighting for well over like 15 years or something like that. So a lot of things you would think you wouldn't have to tell somebody, but you still have to tell them because this is a completely different sport. You have to tell them, use your jab. Don't just sit there and wait. This is not like, if he had the liberty of going for Jake's legs, yeah, crouch low and load up, overhand right. But it's not going to work like that. And it's certainly not going to come that easy in boxing. You will see that occasionally. You'll see somebody just get laid out in the first round from the first punch. But that doesn't happen very often. It does happen in the UFC. It does happen in Bellator. It happens in arenas like that. Not in boxing very often. Now let me just shift over to the weight difference. All right, this literally looked like Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather. I mean, the size was a factor. Not only is Jake taller than Tyron, he's much bigger. He was already bigger in the weigh-in, but he was like much bigger the night of the fight. He was easily over 200 pounds. All right, now the weigh-in was like 190. Tyron weighed in, I believe, 188, and I think Jake was right on the money. But we all know you rehydrate. You rehydrate, I don't know, you probably have a salad. You might even have a steak. I've heard of people who have steaks after they have their weigh-ins. You might have a steak. you put some weight back on. You're going to put a lot of weight back on. That dude easily looked well over 200 pounds. I want to say 210, 215. That he was solid and he was big. It was a lot bigger than Tyron. And again, weight matters in a fight. Yes, it does. Unless you're Deontay Wilder, weight matters. Unless you're Tank Davis, weight matters. Period. What would normally knock a lot of people out didn't take Jake out because he was bigger. Also, we got to factor in that they have these bigger gloves on. Tyron's used to wearing a 4-ounce glove, and I think they were wearing 10-ounce gloves. I believe they were wearing 10-ounce gloves. So that's number one. You know, it takes a lot of that pop away. But on top of that, look at the size of Jake. He's much bigger. Much, much bigger. Tyron's used to fighting people at 170 pounds. Now he's in the ring with somebody well over 200 pounds. That makes a difference. We're talking about a 30-pound difference. That definitely makes a difference. And it showed itself. It definitely showed itself. Like I said, was it the most entertaining fight? No. Did it show us some things about both fighters? Yeah, it did. Tyron could, I mean, at 40 years old, I don't exactly know what he's going to morph into this late in the game. Let's, call a spade a spade. However, he does have a heart for this. And when I say a heart for this, I mean combat. So he has that under his belt. He has the heart. He's been doing it, like I said, well over 15 years. He knows what's inside of him. He knows that he's reached the peak in this other arena, the UFC. And he held the title for, I believe, 3 years and some change. So he's not a newcomer to reaching the top. And he's not the type of guy who would just do something just to do it. He wants to reach the top. What I would say to him is learn how to use your jab. I mean, maybe he could have been a little bit more loose. Another thing is, if you look at the guys, neither one of them were sweating when they got in the ring. You should have a good sweat going on by the time you get to the ring so that you'd already be loose. If you look at old fights with Mike Tyson, that dude was he was drenching sweat walking to the ring. So by the time he got to the ring, I mean, he was just loose. You need to be loose. You definitely need to be loose. It's not like you're just going to figure it all out in the first round. No, you're going to be stiff, and you're both going to be a little hesitant in the first round. But if you're loose, you have an edge in somebody because you are loose and you're limber and you're just ready to go. So that's something else. Now, with Jake, I would say cardio was a factor. Cardio was definitely a factor. I'd say by the 5th round, he was not the same person. And I don't want to make that a credit to why Tyron actually did tee off on him a few times. I think Tyron, like I said, he was patient. That's one of the reasons why he teed off on him. Also, he's experienced. That's another reason why he teed off on him. And Tyron was going to the body, which is smart because he is taller and you want to break him down. If you hit the bigger guy in the body, he's going to crumble over. Now, if he crumbles over, the head is right there. So, kudos to Tyron for understanding that. I just wish he would have stuck to that. If he had, again, I believe he could have got himself a knockout. I mean, already, like in the later rounds, Jake didn't look like, he wanted a whole lot more. But he was doing just enough to keep Tyron away. I don't think Jake has a whole lot of pop in his punches. I mean, you look at Tyron after the fight, dude don't have literally nothing on his face. But I think him just being a 200-pound man, just enough of a pop just to keep you back. A lot of people, again, me and my examples, a lot of people would say, oh, Floyd Mayweather doesn't hit hard. Yeah, I've never seen anybody just run up and stand in front of him like that. No, he hits hard enough to get your respect and to make you flinch if he were to pop a jab at you. And I believe it was Andre Berto who said, he hits hard enough for you to know I can't take too many of these. And I think the same thing with Jake. I really don't know how hard Jake hits because everybody he has fought, he's been much bigger than. So I really don't know how hard the guy hits. If you put another 200-pounder in there, I don't know what happens. They might laugh at it, like his punches. They might be pawing at him. I have no idea. When you're always 30 pounds bigger than somebody, yeah, you are going to knock people out if you come in contact with their jaw. But I would mostly work on Jake's cardio. That's what I would work on. Cardio. And it doesn't look like they had a game plan for Tyron either, to be honest with you. And I don't understand because you got tons of footage of this man's fights. Yes, he's coming from a different world, and yes, he's coming from a different setup, meaning foot positioning. But you still have tons and tons of footage to look at to gauge what you need to do towards him, and you did not do it. So that's that. Overall, one more thing I just want to mention. So after the fight, Tyron says he wants a rematch because he believed he won. I believe Jake won by points, but technically, if you want to get technical with things, so it's hard when both guys didn't do a whole lot in the fight. So it's like, okay, then what are you judging? Are you judging that this guy hit the other guy more? Because honestly, a lot of that stuff was like arm shots, and Tyron was deflecting a lot of those punches. Like a lot of that stuff was not clean. Or are you looking at damage? If you're looking at damage, Tyron Woodley clearly won that fight. If you're looking at who made more contact, okay, fine, Jake Paul won the fight. I would say, just to be fair to both parties, that should have been a draw. And I do think they both need to run it back. Now they have experience in there, because Tyron now has a boxing match under his belt. Jake Paul now has 8 rounds under his belt. Now they know each other a little bit. Now they know what they need to train for, because neither one of them really knew what to train for. Now they know what to train for. Now I think they should run it back. Tyron said he wanted to run it back, and I think they should run it back. I think it makes sense. I think it doesn't look too good on Jake if he just takes this superficial win and kind of runs with it. But those are my thoughts. I want to know what you think down below.